Hello, welcome to More to Explore. We're happy to have you joining us. This is for the College of Global Futures, which is comprised of 3 schools. We have the School for the Future of Innovation and Society, School of Sustainability, and the School of Complex Adaptive Systems. I'm
So we're pleased to,
and I graduated from the program, and I'm working with my colleague, Colin.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Colin Tatro. I'm also a faculty member here, a graduate just like Bridget. We're so thankful to have you here for this session about the College of Global Futures. It's going to be fantastic.
I told my father I was getting a degree in sustainability, and back in 2006, he said, well, what is that? Because it was still a new developing field of study. And I said, it's treating the world as if we intended to stay. This is how Sir Crispin Tickell defines it. And this is the big duh. We have nowhere else to live. If you could go to Mars and grow potatoes with Matt Damon, would you go? We don't have those options right now. We are here on this planet with a growing population. So sustainability looks at 3 areas. A strong economy is important for a growing population. The environment itself, the earth is our life support system, and society. Quality of human life plays a large role in what we study.
So the College of Global Futures is, a interdisciplinary and a transdisciplinary program across 4 distinct campuses that ASU has. We offer it comprehensively online at our Keystone Tempe campus, our wonderful urban downtown campus, and our very desert adapted and sustainable Polytechnic campus located in the eastern part of the city.
This is a screenshot that you can take with your phone, or if you want to just shoot a screenshot. Our degree programs across the 3 schools, it boiled down to, as an undergraduate, for your bachelor's degree, you have 5 choices. It depends on what the best fit for you is. And you can learn more about our degree programs as you learn what we talk about in this session, as well as going to the website. But the quick view here is that we have a Bachelor of Science in Sustainability and a Bachelor of Arts in Sustainability. You can see by the white little subtopics of how you can morph into, if you're interested in governance and policy, that's going to be the Bachelor of Arts in Sustainability. If you're interested in building cities, that's the arts. I'm looking at the Bachelor of Science degree, economics. Colin and I both studied corporate sustainability, so there's a lot of economics to play there. We also have a new degree from 2 years ago called the Bachelor of Science in Sustainable Food Systems. This is so important because we have a growing population on the earth and we have diminishing farmland. Cities, as they build out, are literally pouring concrete on land that grows food. So if you think for just a moment about where you live, and do you remember how there may have been a citrus grove or some farmland nearby, but now it's another housing development or another office area? This is why sustainability looks at how do we feed a growing population more food when we have less water supply and less farmland. We also have the School for the Future of Innovation and Society offering a Bachelor in Science and a Bachelor of Arts in Innovation. And you can see with those subsets of looking at health policy and journalism and psychology, very exciting field of study to work towards a more sustainable future. And then with our School for the Complex Adaptive Systems, that's currently a graduate program, which will be morphing into an undergraduate.
So what Bridget articulated there is that those are multiple schools and programs under one family of a college umbrella where we all work together, right, to create change agents here in the College of Global Futures. And speaking about that global capacity, the College of Global Futures really is not just an incredible domestic program, but it is an international program. So when you think about coming here, you're going to be surrounding yourself with over 26 different nationalities and locations in a singular academic body that lends not only to incredible understanding, but to a globally sensitive purview as well.
So not only will your classmates bring their perspectives from their varied countries, but we actually go out into the world and make a difference while you're still a student. You can start doing amazing internships and capstone projects and study abroad programs. This map just shows you how we are working with all those different countries that are highlighted on sustainable development goals. These were designed by the United Nations. They all have a target date for the year 2030 So we're about 10 years away to meeting those targets. And as a student, you'll get hands-on real world experience to get this done.
So in addition to that hands-on capacity, don't take our word for it, take other people's words for it. ASU and the College of Global Futures really is all in when we talk about making the world a better place. So when we look at rankings, kind of how do we measure ourselves according to things like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? These are the biggest, 16, 17 being the synthesis goals that the world and all of the international countries say, gee whiz, if we actually even solve one of these issues, the world's going to be much better off, let alone getting to all 16 of them. So ASU was recently voted number 5 in the entire world with regard to its universities focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals. And guess what? Ranked number 1 in the entire United States. So when you think about going to an institution of impact and choice, look no further than the College of Global Futures.
We've been receiving more recognitions, top 1% of the most prestigious universities in the world. We have now for 6 years in a row been named number 1 in the US for innovation. For decades, that belonged to Stanford and MIT. They were going back and forth on positions number 1 and 2. We've been number 1 for 6 years consecutive now. Developing world patents, our students have a lot of resources to be able to make a difference through patents. Just amazing value for your money. It's a best buy for excellence and value.
So when you come here to the College of Global Futures, what we really want to provide you is an interdisciplinary and a transdisciplinary mindset. We're going to talk about some of the competencies, things that we help train you to in order to solve these problems and think into the future. I'll cover 3, Bridget's going to cover 2. So the first one, systems thinking. The world is a very complex and interrelated area. As you even saw, one of our 3rd colleges, the School for Complex and Adaptive Systems, right? Even in sustainability, we think about a systems approach. From a futures perspective, we think about the systemic concerns into the future, leading to our second one. So we think in these large picture impacts, how things work together, because things are related. A futures perspective, so highly embodied by our School for the Future of Innovation in Society. What are we building? Why are we building it? How do we ensure that we build it the best, not just now, but with purpose and intent looking to the future? From a values perspective, unlike maybe some other programs or orientations, we actually clearly articulate, guess what? Things that we value, cultural tradition, values, all these things. We embed these, we honor them, and we actually lead from a place of value perspective as well.
And the last 2 key competencies, strategic thinking, just making sure that we're planning this out of, sometimes this is backcasting. We look at, this is what we want, the futures thinking that Colin mentioned. Then we back up and say, what are the steps to get there? You may be doing that right now, thinking, what is the job that you want? And then back up and say, okay, what are classes that are going to prepare me for that job and get me out there doing what I want to do? And collaborative competency is very important. We work together not only as classmates, as professors with their students. We have stakeholders all over the campus, as well as stakeholders in other cities, where we're working with people on actual problems. Through your internships, your capstone research with companies, you're going to collaborate. I teach study abroad programs. Every one of my programs, we work on site with locals on an issue that's important to them. My most recent trip to Costa Rica, we collaborated with a family that had a coffee plantation, and we worked to help them with their production of their crops.
Here at the College of Global Futures, we kind of joke around a little bit. There are no students here, not a single one. The reality is we create change agents. And we do that by kind of 3 core orientations. We not only help you identify the issues, so those competencies, you will identify what's really at the root cause of things. But then we will pivot, unlike other programs, to not only finding solutions, right? And we will train you with the knowledge, tools, and motivating factors to do such. We want to create net positive impact. Simply knowing it and training you to do it are not enough. We want you to have a demonstrable ability to accelerate out of this institution and create meaningful impact in perpetuity.
So these are just some subject areas that we look at. Sometimes we're looking at how cities are designed. They need to not only have good energy sources and water, they need to be affordable. Some cities don't have affordable housing anymore. We've got to make sure that there are jobs, affordability, medical services. Transportation can be fabulous when it's public transportation and can help decrease greenhouse gas emissions. So that's a whole area. We have a lot of alumni that work for cities. Colin did a lot of work for the city of Phoenix. We have students that have jobs at the city of Boulder and in Gilbert and in Orlando. When we look at energy, great to have renewable energies, of course, but it has to be affordable upfront. So our students aren't just looking at solar energy technologies, they're looking at how do we make this something that people can get on their roof so we can start using it. Cost is a huge part of energy issues. When we look at water, it's not just having an abundance of water and to make sure that our aquifers are full, that our lake levels are where they need to be. It's having clean water and making sure water gets to where it needs to be. There's so many issues right now with people that are in areas of the world and they don't have access to clean water. This is a huge issue with sustainability. And real quickly, when Colin talked about being transdisciplinary, we'll look at one issue such as water and we say, what can policy and governance do to fix this? What can engineering do to have better water management systems? What is the business role of water and the cost of it? What would social scientists do for this? We look at all those different perspectives. As I mentioned with food supply, we have a whole degree dedicated to this now. Growing population, less land to grow food on. Climate change is something that we're looking at every single day. We still have areas where people may not understand exactly what climate change is or how it affects them directly. It's something that has to be measured, which it is, but be looked at through that social perspective, and that leads to social transformation. We had an amazing, we have an amazing lecture that's on our YouTube channel from Dr. Sonia Klinsky, talking about how do you communicate with someone who may have a completely different mindset than you, find your common ground, and that's the social transformation that'll help us deal with climate change and these other issues. And sustainable development, we're connected internationally. We're looking not only at how we develop our own cities and towns in our country, but what are we doing overseas and how can we help countries to meet those sustainable development goals through better development.
So look, we're going to unpack a couple of things here as we move forward in the presentation. Let's take an example, world population. So the world is a finite spot, right? This beautiful rock right in the Goldilocks area of our solar system. We've been increasing in population fairly quickly. From the 1960s to the 2000s, went from 3 to 6 billion. And guess where that's headed? Up like a hockey stick. Projected at current trends to be over 9.5 billion people by the year 2050. And why is that important? Well, that's part of what we call the carrying capacity of our Earth and the effective life support services that we are going to be maxing out of the entire Earth by the year 2050.
This is Colin's hockey stick he mentioned, just an example of how quickly we've been growing just in the last few decades. So we're going to show you just a couple examples of what our students might look at. We look at real world current examples of what's happening. Every single class we're teaching right now is looking at the pandemic and what are the challenges of it. Anything that's happening in the real world, we address it right away. So I'll give one example. Colin will give another example. I'm from Florida. I'm from South Florida. In the 1980s, scientists modeled how much of Florida is underwater when the Atlantic Ocean temperature is 2 degrees Celsius warmer than it was in 1980. This is pricey real estate. This is Miami, West Palm Beach, Hollywood, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa. To lose those cities with rising sea levels, this is happening because ocean water expands as it warms. Salt water expands as it warms, and that's why we're seeing ocean levels around the world getting higher, the Atlantic Ocean especially so. So when the scientists modeled this in the 1980s, they said this will happen within 100 years, already starting. This has been starting now for several years. Miami, every single month, floods out, sometimes twice a month. It's because every high tide is higher and every low tide is higher from that salt water warming and expanding. The mayor of Miami introduced a new tax to try to raise money to fix this. And if you're mayor, are you going to get reelected if you introduce a new tax? Probably not. He risked his job to try to solve this. He raised enough money to actually elevate the city's streets and sidewalks that surround Miami. They're 2 feet higher. He knows this is a Band-Aid solution. This is going to last maybe 20 years, and those higher tides are going to be back into his city, but at least he's bought some time. They've got 20 years to figure out another system to protect their city, and this is where collaboration comes into play. We can look at the Netherlands. They're below sea level. They're not flooding out because they engineered a pumping system, and they have a natural dike system along the North Sea. We can look at strategies like that for our cities like New Orleans and Miami and the East Coast cities affected by the Atlantic warming so quickly.
So let's take a little bit of a turn here and start thinking about things like increased population as it pertains to waste production. So this isn't just going to be environmental. We're not going to bring some social components now and into the future. So as population rises, level of means and use of materials increase naturally. Well, what that does inevitably is create more waste. Now, I want to ask yourself, when you throw yourself something away, where does that go? Is it to the magic land of away? Well, it is not. And many of the things that we throw away are actually really harmful, not just to the environment, but also to people as well. So when you look at things like electronic waste, where it has rare earth elements, things that are actually carcinogenic in that, interestingly, those don't often go to domestic waste or refuse areas. Those are actually exported to lower income, often disadvantaged countries, places like Kenya, India, previously in China. So individuals in this place then have jobs. These are their jobs, are to melt and smelt out the precious metals and rare earth elements that, guess what, alone they're handling by hand. They have a statistically higher cancer rate. So now we have an issue of waste production, not just intersecting with the environment, but now a social justice and human equity concern as we move forward as well. So this helps us understand issues of consumerism. How are we actually maybe changing our purchasing habits? We intersect with areas, things like product design and innovation. Can we, on an upstream basis, actually intervene in what we're using to make things? Can we design with intent for the future of disposition or going from a linear economy to a circular one? That then gets into policy. We have areas of policy and governance that we dive into. How do we regulate this? Are there laws? What is the carrot and stick? And then on the waste management innovations, what are the downstream technological solutions and education components to actually abate things like this? So what you're taking a look at is a map of electronic waste laws. So we update this, gosh, once a year. What you can see here, several of the states here, actually as an example, do have laws with regard to electronic waste. But what you're going to notice as well, many of them do not. So again, just an idea in a singular piece very quickly about the policy, the governance, the finances, the human capital, the movement, just the environmental concerns on just something like waste and electronic waste streams. This is something that you would actually be able to dive into at the College of Global Futures.
One other of the issues that we study are issues like the plastic garbage that's out in our oceans. Some of you may have already seen film of this in documentaries. There's so much trash out there that the ocean currents bring it together like gyres. And there's 11 gyres on our surface of this planet of plastic trash. These are petroleum polymer plastics soaking in salt water. They will never biodegrade in our oceans. It's causing an effect to the marine life. That seal had swum into that plastic ring and could not feed and washed up in California. This bird was decomposing on Midway Atoll. All that plastic in its system includes a lighter full of lighter fluid. Maybe the lighter was the same color as a fish that bird hunts, or maybe it was wrapped in kelp. But animals ingest this, it contributes to their death, and it contributes to the food chain. Even if you don't eat seafood, the United States feeds seafood proteins to cattle and chicken in our country. So those petroleum polymers are in our food chain right now. This turtle had swum into that six-pack ring when it was younger. As the turtle grew, that ring stayed constricted. They've since cut off that ring and named the turtle Peanut. But as you can imagine, there are animals all over this planet that are affected by our trash. And one of the things that we look at is the simple part that Colin mentioned earlier with consumerism. If we can buy stuff without the plastic packaging, it's so much better. I understand that's not easy choice all the time. Plastic's a very cheap and convenient source to be packaging stuff. But if you get your eggs, you have the choice of a plastic that could cause problems out in the system, styrofoam, which will never biodegrade, or the cardboard, which will biodegrade. If you always buy eggs in the cardboard carton, eventually stores will say, hey, my eggs in the styrofoam and plastic are expiring. I can't sell these. I can't move them. And they'll tell their vendors and their supply chain, package these in something biodegradable. So we have an example of a kid who was a 16-year-old vacationing with his family in Greece. He said he saw more plastic bags than fish in the Mediterranean Sea. So he decided to design something to start collecting plastic out of the ocean. This is what he put on the internet. And in his first year, he had more than 2 million euro contributed to make this happen. They've got this up and running in the North Sea off the coast of Holland. They don't know yet what to do with all this saltwater soaked petroleum polymers, but at least it's out of the ocean. And sometimes in sustainability and in looking at the future of innovation for society, we take these problems one step at a time and start getting it done.
So that innovation, right? These audacious, crazy ideas, we want them. And by virtue of that, not only do we love crazy ideas, we bring big visionary people here to the College of Global Futures. So by nature of this being Arizona State University, the biggest public research institution in the nation and the definitive College of Global Futures, we can attract people like former Secretary Tom Vilsack, not just once, but Secretary Vilsack came twice to the university. We have a long history, which you can always see on our websites from the College of Global Future, of keystone, what we call Wrigley speakers. These are some of the biggest, most impressive people in the world in their subject matters of innovation, sustainability, and complex systems that want to come here. Guess what? One of the fun things, in addition to their lectures and their engagements, we always carve out time for student conversations and connections with you. So you're going to come here, you're going to see crazy ideas. We want crazy ideas, and we bring some of the world's most impressive speakers to bear for your benefit.
So one of the things Tom Vilsack had talked about was this problem of growing populations, bigger cities, more people to feed, less farmlands. So one of the things that we look at is to grow food vertically. That's an image of a building that does not exist yet. This is an actual building in Tokyo. So many benefits to this. The most important is that we can grow food vertically without soil. It's all hydroponics and aquaponics. We can grow food using 10% of the agricultural water supply. We can save 90% of our farming water to grow food this way. We don't need the chemicals, pesticides, and fertilizers that are causing so much eutrophication in the Gulf of Mexico and the oceans, so many problems with those chemicals. We also have the advantage of urban-based local farming, which is a good idea just for food security. Chicago has 2.5 million square feet of urban farming with rooftop gardens and vertical farming. Chicago saw a drop in respiratory illnesses. These plants take carbon out of the air and put out fresh air. So it's good for society to have more fresh air. So vertical farming is something that's really important to our system of cities. And by the way, these crops insulate the buildings. So we've also seen a drop in energy consumption, which is amazing.
So one of our schools, the School for the Future of Innovation and Society, we want to ask big, audacious questions. Things like technology. Does technology, because great, technology can be used for a lot of good things, but is that technology potentially going to promote inequalities, a digital or technological divide of haves and have-nots? Does that technology actually solve all the problems that we needed to? Or are we creating a solution that's making a future problem? Gee whiz, how come there aren't more women in STEM careers? Not just saying, well, that's a problem. Yes, we know that's a problem, but why not? And then we're going to take action for that. How about from a government and governance perspective? Should and to what extent government control innovation? And how should it encourage smart, responsible, progressive innovation to make society better, to all those points previous? And then honestly thinking a bit large, how do we actively shape the future as opposed to being reactionary and saying, well, gee whiz, oops, we didn't know that was going to happen? How do we look with future intent and foresight to say, this is where we want to go, and how do we help shape and bring that to fruition?
So it's real world learning. As we've been talking about, you can have a capstone experience where you're doing research with a company. There are internships. A lot of these are internships that you express interest in. And we've had students say, I want to work in a vineyard, and we find that internship. Research opportunities, again, one of the reasons we're top in the country for innovation is the ability to have great research labs is a big part of this. When we look at workshops, there's an opportunity for students to be working with stakeholders and other classmates and professors on a specific project. Service learning is something I do in my study abroad programs. It's a volunteer type on-site working with people with the issues that they're concerned about and learning from their culture as well as sharing what we know. Field experience, we have that all over, especially when we're looking at crop systems and bioalgae fields and going up and looking at the forestry and finding out what the damage is that's accelerating things like this wildfire. And then study abroad programs. ASU had more than 225 study abroad programs in the year 2019. Amazing choices. And it used to be a full semester in France when I was a teenager. Now you can do a study abroad trip in 10 days or in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, and it gets you credit hours. So just examples of where we go. It's just amazing that you have anywhere to go because we've been to all of the continents now with study abroads, including Antarctica.
That's right. You know, and that entrepreneurial spirit, right, of moving, doing things not just here but abroad, really is also embedded in the College of Global Futures from our own DNA. So you're taking a picture of our former head of technology and innovation on the right, Dr. Ponch, and then on the left is Dean Chris Boone. So Dean Boone here is accepting the award for what's called the Bootstrapper, with the highest percentage of student entrepreneurs. Remember when we said earlier, we want your crazy ideas? We really mean that. Not only do we want them, we want to build, nurture, develop, and accelerate those ideas. So we are an intimate, powerful college and institution with a very high percentage for student body of entrepreneurs that say, well, gosh, if that job doesn't exist and the problem needs to be solved, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and we're going to do it. That is what we do at the College of Global Futures.
Nice. And these are some of the internships our students have had, again, working at vineyards. Junkie now works permanently for the United Nations. Justine Beach went to the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. These are opportunities where you graduate with real world experience. And we'll just flip through some places that we've been before. You can see how we've been all over the world. Those are my kids in Cuba and my kids in Costa Rica. Working with people on site. These particular programs were canceled in 2020 due to the pandemic. They're being rescheduled for next year, and we'll see. If it's good to go, we'll go, and if not, it'll be 2022, but we're determined to make sure that the experiences that you want to have, we're able to at least have the opportunity there if it's good to do so.
So let's ask yourself, why sustainability? Why innovation? Why the College of Global Futures? So, hey, here's the interesting reality. In the United States, typically only about 1 in 4 people have a job related to their field of study and major. You know, in the College of Global Futures, that's about 75%. So if you're to study your innovation, sustainability, complex capacities, you're going to use your degree and your knowledge to make a difference. We're transdisciplinary. The world's problems today are not in a singular silo and mindset. We have to break out of that swim lane, ladies and gentlemen, and we empower you to do that with jobs that actually achieve that. We want to actually solve these complex problems. So the answers are not black and white. It's not a one-way street. We have to understand the interdisciplinarity of this between an economic, a social, and an environmental perspective. And then honestly as well, we are very staunch with regard to real world experience. We will take you out of the classroom and we will give you certainly the knowledge, but these tools, right? And you already have a motivating experience. I know it. We want to give you the tools to actually do that. So all of these experiences while you're here at the College of Global Futures help you transition into a career of opportunity and capacity.
In terms of employment, we poll our alumni. We don't always, I mean, we ask them, do you have a job yet? We wait 60 days out. We just ask a second question. It's not just that first one. We say, is your job related to what you studied in school? We are at 72% for our bachelor's degree students that have an actual sustainability related job. That's 3 times the national average. Colin mentioned earlier, 1 out of 4 Americans actually has a job related to their college degree. We're 3 times higher than that. This is where our students have employment. Most of them go into private industry, but there's government jobs and teaching and nonprofits and entrepreneurships. And this is a snapshot of just a handful of companies where we have alumni working. This is just a few of them, but it represents the variety. Again, transdisciplinary studies. So you have government jobs, city jobs, there's industries and tech industries, retail stores, you've got financial companies and nonprofits. There are a lot of choices out there in terms of what you want to do as your career.
So you can see here, as Bridget put up, these are our admissions opportunities: a 3.0 for first-year students, an 1120 or a 22 on your your SAT and ACT, respectively, or the top 25 of your high school rank. It is only one of those following. If you're a transfer student, we love you too. You have to have 12 or more credit hours under your belt and a cumulative 3.0 GPA.
So we want to thank you for joining us. This is our contact information. Again, I am Bridget Bavasset and Colin Tatro. You can take a screenshot of this.
I'm Colin Tatro. We welcome the opportunity in order that you can simply reach out to us. We would love to have a conversation on the phone, on Zoom, host you for a personal VIP tour here at the university. And we are so thankful for you joining us here today. And we can't wait to call you one of our fellow change agents here at the College of Global Futures.
Thank you so much for listening and have a beautiful, beautiful day.